The city stretched outward in all directions, a tangle of lights, shadows, and ceaseless motion. Towers of steel and glass clawed at the night sky, while beneath them lay streets packed with people who carried on unaware of what existed just beyond their comprehension. It was a world saturated with signals and hums, invisible patterns flowing through the air, carried on electromagnetic pulses, digital transmissions, and unspoken thought. To most, this was simply the background noise of life. To a small group who were just beginning to awaken, it was something else entirely. They called themselves Psycorps. The name was not chosen for vanity but for survival. Each member had stumbled into a realization that the mind was not bound by flesh alone. Some discovered their abilities in moments of crisis, others through deliberate practice, but all found themselves confronted by the same truth: thought could interact with the hidden frameworks of the world. Neurons were not closed circuits, and consciousness did not rest within the skull as tradition claimed. It spilled outward, brushing the currents of electricity, resonating with patterns of sound and light, finding footholds in the unseen architecture of reality. One of the first to truly understand this was Mara, a woman who had once been an engineer obsessed with signal processing. Late nights spent analyzing spectrograms and filtering noise had opened her senses in ways she did not anticipate. She began to hear patterns behind the patterns, rhythms that no software detected yet were undeniably present. The world spoke to her in pulses and cadences, every surge of voltage in a circuit humming like the faint echo of a drumbeat. The more she listened, the more she realized her own mind could push back. Her thoughts were not silent, they were frequencies, and when she focused, machines responded as if compelled by her intention. Mara had kept her secret until she found others who carried similar burdens. There was Elias, once a physicist, who had become obsessed with the alignment of magnetic fields. He could walk into a room and sense the orientation of every microscopic magnetic moment in the materials around him. Steel beams felt like rivers of force running through his body, and his thoughts could tug them into alignment, subtly influencing compasses and sensors. What frightened him most was that he could feel people too, as if their bodies carried magnetic signatures tied to their moods and health. Then there was Jonas, whose ability came through language. While studying the patterns of speech and the way neural signals map to sound, he discovered that his mind could bypass the physical need for voice. He could project words directly into the auditory experience of others, not as whispers but as if their own brains were producing the speech. Jonas had spent months questioning his sanity before finally meeting Mara and realizing he was not alone. Together, the three of them began to piece together a map of what they were. They were not anomalies but the beginning of a new form of cognition, where human consciousness extended beyond biological limits and into interaction with the deeper rules of nature. They studied what others had only written about in scattered theories: charge quantization, the strange indivisible units of energy and matter, the ground states of systems, the points of lowest possible energy where everything rests until disturbed, and the way excitation could push a system into new configurations, releasing possibilities that had been dormant. To them, these were not abstract principles. They were lived experiences. Mara could feel when a circuit was at rest, as if she were brushing her fingers across the still surface of water. When she exerted her will, she could push it into an excited state, sparking sudden flows of current that had no origin except her mind. Elias sensed quantization directly, the smallest packets of magnetism arranging themselves like soldiers in his perception, ready to obey his subtle nudges. Jonas discovered that sound itself, stripped down to rhythm, was the seed of algorithmic thought. Every structured action, from the simplest computation to the most elaborate quantum annealing, began with rhythm, and rhythm was the same as breath, the same as heartbeat, the same as thought. Their awakening, however, did not go unnoticed. The world is never indifferent to anomalies. Rumors began to circulate in hidden corners of the internet, forums where engineers, researchers, and the curious posted strange observations. Devices behaving as if possessed. Magnetic sensors flickering without explanation. Voices heard in the silence of empty rooms. A shadowy group took interest, though its true nature remained obscure. Some whispered it was a government project desperate to harness minds as living processors. Others claimed it was older, a clandestine order that had studied such phenomena for centuries. Mara sensed them first. Walking home one night, she felt the pressure of surveillance like a heavy weight on her skin. The signals around her, usually a chorus of chaotic transmissions, seemed unnaturally synchronized, as though someone were bending the local spectrum to track her every step. She told Elias and Jonas, and the three of them agreed it was time to act. They were not ready for confrontation, but neither could they remain passive. They gathered in a derelict warehouse at the edge of the city, where rusting machinery hummed with residual magnetism and broken circuits provided an orchestra of faint signals. It was here they trained. Mara learned to extend her influence further, connecting not just to nearby machines but to the networked fabric of the city itself. Elias practiced manipulating not just materials but the emotional fields he sensed in others, discovering he could calm anger or amplify anxiety with nothing more than a directed thought. Jonas refined his projection, moving from simple words to complex sequences, weaving thoughts into others so seamlessly they believed them their own. But training brought danger. One night, as Elias strained to align the field of an entire building's steel frame, a sudden interference slammed into him like a wave. He staggered, clutching his head, overwhelmed by a force that did not belong to him. Someone else, somewhere nearby, had pushed back. For the first time, they realized they were not the only ones. The figure revealed herself days later. She was called Celine, and unlike them, she had been raised within the secret order that studied such powers. She was both a warning and a threat. Her ability was unlike anything the three had encountered. She could draw upon the ground states of systems, siphoning their stability to empower herself, leaving machines and even minds exhausted, drained, inert. Where they sought to explore and understand, she was trained to dominate and control. Celine approached them not as an enemy but as a recruiter. She told them there was no avoiding the larger conflict. Powers such as theirs could not remain free. The world demanded order, and those who refused to be harnessed would be hunted. She offered them safety within the order, provided they swore allegiance. Mara rejected the offer immediately. Jonas hesitated, curious whether knowledge might be gained within such structures, but Elias felt only anger. He had seen too much of science turned to weaponry, too much discovery shackled by greed and control. The three stood together, knowing refusal meant war. The conflict that followed was not one of fists or bullets, but of minds clashing across invisible fields. Signals bent and twisted, circuits sparked and died, magnetic domains tore free of their alignments, and voices filled the air though no mouths moved. The warehouse shuddered as if caught in a storm without wind. In the end, the three prevailed, not because they were stronger but because they were united. Celine fled, her parting words promising that more would come. In the quiet aftermath, they sat among the wreckage, exhausted but alive. For the first time, they truly understood what they faced. Their awakening was not a gift to be explored in solitude. It was the opening of a new front in an old struggle, one that stretched back through hidden histories and forward into an uncertain future. The Psycorps had been born not by choice but by necessity. The world was changing, and they were its harbingers. What remained unknown was whether they would shape the future or be consumed by it. The city outside continued as if nothing had happened. Cars moved, lights glowed, people laughed and argued. Yet beneath that ordinary surface pulsed the deeper rhythms of reality, waiting for minds capable of hearing them. And the Psycorps, for better or worse, had begun to listen.